it can be tough to figure out your hydration and your storage whilst you're cycling for long distance events such as like Ironman, transcontinentals, even just extreme endurance events like the 24-hour time trial here in the UK. But after posting an idea on the video saying I want like a big bottle that fits down in the middle here that has a straw, you guys came back to me and said, have you heard of the Speedfil F1? No, I hadn't, but I saw it, I bought it, and I had to give it a go. This has honestly changed, or it's just made those long distance events such as half distance and full distance Ironmans so easy and so easy to fuel for. So I'm going to get into a bunch of features of this and talk about does it work. Anyway, you can see what chapters there are below and you can skip to wherever you need to on there. First of all is how to use this thing. So I'm going to be linking a bunch of like B-roll and stuff when I have had it on here fully set up. But essentially it's just a 2-bolt system that plugs into your normal 2-bolt system on your bike. So it's quite frankly very easy to install. It's remove this bottle cage and put this bottle cage back on. And it also makes taking this thing off very easy, so you can just wash the whole system by hand. To get it on, it's not the smoothest thing in the world, but you only have to do it once. And then there's a very simple bolt system that just keeps it tight and snug whilst it's on there, so really easy to use, and you just tighten that guy up. For the actual straw itself, you'll see on the B-roll here that I have taped it to the back of the frame. The idea here is that I wanted it to be as aerodynamic as possible, so I kept the straw hidden and essentially tried to make my frame shapes a little bit deeper. Of course, when you go around the side here and when it goes underneath, it's not going to be very aero, but it's better than nothing, and it kept the straw from wobbling about all over the place. After that, the way I kept the mouthpiece mounted in a very convenient position, I used a magnet, so I taped this magnet to the handlebar, and then of course I taped a couple of magnets around here, so it made it very easy just to stick it on. And that meant the mouthpiece was always right by my hand, so if I wanted to drink, I literally just took it off, put it on there, and then stuck it back on the mouthpiece, which sat in between my arms there. That's just the way that I did it. Of course, the way that you do it might be very different. So how much liquid can this thing actually carry? And it is up to 1.2 litres, which is bigger than every single normal size bottle for cycling that you can get out there. Most of them go up to like 975 millilitres. So you've practically got an extra 200 ml there just inside this thing. Now that's a lot of water, which is a lot of weight. How much does this thing weigh? The whole system itself here comes in at 378 grams, and well, it's not exactly light for a bottle in a bottle cage, but like I said, it's holding 1.2 litres and it needs to be stable, so there's a bit more material there to hold its rigidity. One thing about the beauty of this weight is that it does sit very low on the bike, so in terms of your handling and the actual stability, because it's so low, it doesn't really affect it at all. I found it very comfortable to ride with, especially when you compare it to the systems that you hold in between the bars here, which I'm going to speak a little bit about in the future. But yeah, just keeps that center of mass nice and low on the bike. One of the big selling points about this thing is refilling it. So as you can see from the images here where I did my Ironman in Austria, I had one bottle in the back, and the beauty of this is that it comfortably takes that whole bottle. So you only have to refill this thing once, and it's so easy. You just take the bottle off the back, you shove the mouthpiece in there, and you just squeeze it until the whole water is out. It's made even easier by the fact that you can see it's slanted to one side, so there's more access on one side here where you can put the bottle into, so it makes it even easier to do so. So you're not trying to squeeze a bottle in between your frame and your legs. Does it leak? The answer is a very easy no. The beauty about this one is that they actually have a 3-piece nozzle mount on here, so not only can you refill it, it stops the water from coming back out. So you have this normal rubber flap on the top, which generally stops the small splashes, but then they have this like triangular plastic cap that sits underneath that stops the big splashes from coming out. When I've used the ones in the past that sit between the arms and the forearms, they just have that kind of like rubber flap on the top, and you're just getting splashed the whole time with water until you've finished about half of your water. And of course you've got carbs in there, so your face and your forearms get sticky and horrible. So it's a very simple solution, but honestly it works very, very well. When I talk about the stability of this thing, it is very stable. As I said earlier, because it's got some weight and some heft to it, it does hold onto the bike very well. It doesn't wobble, you don't knock your knees into it, it doesn't shift, it doesn't flop about on the bike. It's just really stable and it feels rock solid. It doesn't look like it will be, but I promise it sits on the bike rock solid. Is it aerodynamic? Well, the answer here is going to be, it depends. Let me explain why. First of all, before I talk about any of this aero stuff, one thing to note is that I don't have a wind tunnel on me, so I cannot verify these claims. These are just estimates and predictions that I'm going to be putting in there. So for bikes like the Orbea here, that have this cam tail shape, so it's round on the front but it's cut off at the back, I think that this works very well. So generally that you see this on a lot more modern time trial bikes, but it just feels like it covers this Speedfil system a lot better. You can kind of see it doesn't really stick out much either side of the bike, and they do have the geometry and dimensions on here on the website, so you can see and measure the width of your bike and your downtube frame and compare if it covers enough of this. It does stick out a little bit here, a couple of mil either side, but it is very well protected by the downtube on the frame here. So I believe this thing is going to be versatile and aerodynamic for a lot more modern aero bikes like the Orbea or Duo I've got here. My brother's bike on the other hand, his Fuji, it has a very old school shape, so there's no cam tails, everything's tapered around the back, and it's very slim and very, very skinny. So I think that it's not going to hide this bottle as well here. I'd imagine this still works and still works very well, but I just don't think it's going to work as well as it does on a bike like this one. Another thing to say is that this bottle cap does stick out a little bit, and you kind of need that for the convenience of filling it up, but it does stick out to the side a little bit. Do I think this is much of an aero hindrance? Not really. I'd rather it be that slightly more convenient to fill it up than it be half a watt faster aerodynamically. So are there any other benefits to using this? And the answer for me is yes, and I'm going to compare it when I use the bottle that sits in between the arms. So I'm going to link a video down below where I go into a bit more detail of how my previous setup used to be, which you can check out there. But the beauty of this one is that it really takes away a lot of the faff. So in that previous setup, I had to have that in between the arms, which meant I couldn't stick my arms together, and then the Garmin mount had to go further up the handlebar, so I had to make this very rubbish looking, it was stable, but front mount system just to get my Garmin further forward, and I used to have to awkwardly sit with my hands in there. But no, this just keeps the front end dead clean. I can put my Garmin mount where I want to, I can stick the mouthpiece where I want to, and it just keeps it very convenient. Not only that, it carries a lot more water than those front bottles. And yeah, I think it would make the bike a little bit more aerodynamic just because you have less mass on this front area where the wind hits the bike first. So it keeps the front end a little bit cleaner and sticks it in between the middle of the frame where the air's a little bit dirtier. Okay, what about the price? And admittedly, this thing isn't cheap. It's $129. That could, depending on shipping and access to your country, because it's not a widespread product, it can be more, you might be able to get it for less. It's just very hit and miss how much you can actually get this thing for. But from their website themselves, it's $129. One thing I will say for that though is that I think it can be kind of expensive, and probably is, because it's not mass produced like a lot of other things are. It's a very niche thing specifically for triathlon or those really big endurance events. Also, for that money, it is well designed, and when you compare it to other hydration systems like the ones that go in between your arms and the bars that are more inconvenient than this and hold less water and destabilize the bike more because the center of mass comes up higher, a lot of them are just as expensive as this one, if not more. So for me, the price is somewhat justifiable, especially when you compare what are some of the bikes out nowadays that have that integrated water storage. You're normally paying maybe somewhat like £1,000 more than a normal time trial frame that won't have that integrated water storage. So when it comes to that, not so bad. So to conclude, do I like this thing? And the answer is an easy yes. I actually love it. I think it's made my triathlons much easier to set up. I also get much more water, much more fuel in there. I'm a lot less sticky because there's nothing splashing in between my arms when I come off the bike. And I just think this is actually a fantastic solution. Guys, If I've missed anything out here or you have any further questions, please don't hesitate to ask me. You can ask me in the comments below, or you can find me over here on Instagram if you want to message me privately. I reply to pretty much everyone. But I've been Jason. This has been Cycling Unboxed. See you in another video.